Hello and welcome to another video. This time I'm building yet another cheap budget gaming PC with used parts. We'll be using another Phenom 2X6 CPU in this, and we are again pairing it with a GTX 560. After that I'm going to show some benchmarks, and since I already did a PC with similar specs, I'll test different games this time. I don't remember the name of this Antec case, but it used to be very popular at some point. There's quite a lot of these in used markets today. This case had been sitting in somebody's warehouse for quite a while, and I had to clean it before this video. First thing I did was install the power supply. I used a 600 watt used Silverstone PSU, and it's important to use 600 or more watt PSU for Phenom X6 and GTX 560, as I found out with the last Phenom X6 video. The power consumption of Phenom X6 and the 560 combined when running Formark and Prime 95 can exceed 500 watts. This Asus AM3 Plus motherboard and the stock AMD cooler I'm using are both picked up from the trash and given to me for free. The AMD stock cooler looks quite small, but in fact it can handle the X6 CPU quite okay. It has a lot of fin stacks and heat pipes packed into a small size. As always, installing a few RGB fans can make these older cases look quite modern. This case had one very old Noctua fan. I removed that and installed some cheap RGB fans with a controller, and since this case has a reset button, we can use that for controlling the RGB fans. I mounted the RGB controller at the front where the reset button's cable can just about reach it. The cables will also hold the controller down and keep it in place secure enough. As always with cheap gaming PCs, I went with a SSD plus HDD combo with Windows on the SSD and HDD as mainly Steam game storage. I mounted the SSD where an optical drive would normally go. It's only supported from one side, but that's fine since it's very light. The HDD instead requires better mounting, so I attached it at the bottom of the case. Luckily this case has a 2.5-inch drive mount. This is actually quite rare for older cases, since SSDs weren't commonplace then. After doing some cable management, it's time to install the graphics card, which is a Asus DirectCU variant of GTX 560. Since this is an old card, I took it apart and replaced the thermal paste and cleaned all the dust from the heatsink. This card is actually quite easy to clean and reapply the paste, since these cards have an IHS like CPUs, so it's not so critical if the new thermal paste application is a tiny bit imperfect. For RAM, I installed two different sets of 2 gig modules, so it has 4 2 GB modules. It should now be dual channel 8 gigs of memory. I noticed that the ASUS board has no VRM cooling, and I don't know how these little heatsinks help, but I'm not really comfortable of installing an X6 Phenom in a board with no VRM cooling at all. With that done and the cables managed somehow, it is time to put the PC case back together. And one Windows install and a cheap Windows 10 key later, this is what the PC looks like with the RGB fans on, and the fan LEDs can be controlled through the reset button. Minecraft with 1080p resolution and low settings manages something from 60 FPS to 100. And GTA 5 in lowest settings 1080p gets a very stable and playable 55 FPS average.